Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Born Podcast, brought to you from our studio here in central Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Nathan Imboden, and I have the privilege of interviewing business owners and leaders from all around our region here in central Pennsylvania, learning all about how they started, grew, and are running their successful organizations and making a strong impact in their community all along the way. You can find a full replay of our broadcast on our website at thebornpodcast.com. Also, search for us on all your favorite social media channels, any one of your favorite podcast apps, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Search for The Born Podcast. Hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all these episodes. Today, we got another good one. I'd like to think they're all good, but I'm maybe a little bit biased. I don't know what you think, but we got a really good one. We got my friend Andy Matter, who is the owner of HomeRite. And if you can see on the shirt, the Glass Doctor here in Mechanicsburg. And we're going to learn all about the business that they're in and Andy's background. But for now, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
You too.
We realized, actually, I'll do a quick segue, that about yesterday he realized, and about a week before we found out he was coming on the show, I realized that he's been in my house and done some work as the Glass Doctor in our house. So that was a nice little nostalgic moment.
It was.
So,
small world.
Yeah, it is. It is. Give us a little background about yourself. Who is Andy? What's your background? Where are you from?
So I grew up in Elizabethville.
Okay.
Which is a tiny little farming town in northern Dauphin County.
Yes, it is.
And I grew up, my mom, my sister, went to Upper Dauphin High School.
Mm-hmm.
And the largest employer in our small town happened to be MI Windows and Doors, which is how I got launched into the window industry. I lived right down the street from the eventual owners of the company. Started doing sort of odd jobs around the plant when I was about 14 and have been messing around in the window game ever since.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a Halifax boy, so we should not hold any of this against each other.
We should not.
We're long gone from all those, rivalries.
A lot of water over the dam.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes. Quick side note: the group that helps do all our social media, Heather and her team. But Heather is up in that area now herself, so we have some other connections there. Yeah. So shout out Heather, Northern Dauphin County. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So, what brought you out of Northern Dauphin County? I'm assuming you're not living in that area anymore? Okay, so what took you away from Northern Dauphin County?
So we live in Dillsburg now.
Good man.
It's a good spot. But my wife, we started dating back in 2004. Born and raised in Mechanicsburg. And right around the time we started dating, I took on a different sales position with MI, and I was going to be traveling a lot. And the bulk of that territory was sort of down 95, down into Maryland. So it actually just sort of made more sense to dock in Mechanicsburg at that time.
Yep.
So we spent about 17 years in Mechanicsburg, right off the Carlisle Pike. Both of our kids were born there. And then Mechanicsburg just started to get too overgrown.
Yeah.
It's like every empty cornfield they could find.
Yep.
They wanted to start dropping houses on it. So we wanted to have a little bit more freedom, a little more space. So we took the leap and went to Dillsburg.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. How long ago was that?
2021.
Okay. All right. So not too long ago. Cool.
Yeah, we actually moved the family and the businesses within the same month.
Okay.
Which was
oh my gosh,
incredibly stupid.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. We talk about what shouldn't you have done, and that's a separate story.
Life lessons, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So let's fast forward a little bit from how you got to HomeRite and moving away from MI into HomeRite. That when did that transition occur? Why did that come up?
So that was in late 2007. And I had been traveling. It was a typical sales job. I'd leave Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning and get home Friday night.
Yeah.
And it was really starting to become a strain. At that point, it was just my wife and I, but we were really starting to talk about having kids and expanding the family. So I just decided that I was going to take on a different role. So MI had sort of a falling out with Window World. and lost the national contract. And their response to that was, well, we'll just be the direct source to a homeowner. So they started this retail arm called HomeRite. And a friend of mine that I'd worked with for a number of years at MI, who at that time was actually owned a Window World. And I guess the powers that be at MI had tapped him to come on board and sort of help with this new initiative of HomeRite. Mm-hmm. And this all sort of corresponded with me wanting to get out of the field and be home every night. And so Nick came to me and asked if I wanted to come on board and, sort of be the sales arm and the marketing arm of this new HomeRite thing in Harrisburg. So I did. And that was, like I said, late 2007, early 2008. So it was literally building from the ground up, which was when we get into the Glass Doctor thing, having a franchise, it's a whole different animal.
Yeah. Okay. And then a few years after that, I understand, is then when you bought the business.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So 2008, 2009, the only location that we had was Harrisburg.
Okay.
And then due to some housing stuff in the housing market and how that fizzled out, Nick wasn't able to sell his house in Maryland and move to central Pennsylvania, which was sort of the grand plan. So as an alternative, he opened a satellite store in Waynesboro, and that was great. So if you remember 2009, 2010, we had all those tax credits.
Yeah.
And we weren't savvy enough to understand what was happening. There were the pull ahead demand. Mm-hmm. So when 2011 rolled around, we hit probably the end of the first quarter, and it was just nothing was happening. And the leads weren't there, the sales weren't there. We had nothing in the pipeline. And that's when we started to talk to other people that are a little bit more savvy in the world of economics, and they were sort of explaining what had happened, and that there was going to be a crater, and Nick wasn't prepared for it. I just think that there weren't enough capital resources to actually keep it going the way that it should be.
Yeah.
So at that time, so I was running the Harrisburg store with my cousin Kyle, who came on board in 2010. And like I said, Nick was running the Waynesboro store. And the solution to the financial problems was, his suggestion was, well, why don't you two just work on commission-based only, and whatever you sell, whatever you install, and we'll kind of go that way. And like I said, at that point, there was no work. So the idea of working commission was terrifying. And we also had, my wife and I were expecting our second kid, November of 2011. So fast forward a couple months, and Kyle and I talked, and I said, what if we just buy the Harrisburg store? We'll take Harrisburg, and Nick could take Waynesboro. And at least if we're going to make it, we're going to make it.
Sure.
And that's what we decided to do. So we severed the two businesses. Again, a lot of lessons learned, the hard and expensive way.
Yeah.
But that's how we ended up in ownership of HomeRite. Like I said, that was 2011. 2012 was the first full year. And I think outside of some of the COVID stuff, we've grown every year since.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
I want to dig into some of that a little bit more, but let's maybe take a step back and relate it to HomeRite. And just what do you guys do? Like, what is HomeRite? What's your niche? What's your focus? What do you guys do?
Primarily replacement windows and doors.
Okay.
A little bit of siding, but like I said, we're door and window guys, and like we had talked before.
Yeah.
We're not as much in obviously generating leads is sort of the lifeblood of the business, but we're contractors at heart. Okay. We're not marketers. We're not heavy closers and one call sales guys and that kind of thing. Like we treat our people and our customers the way that we would want to be treated. And I wouldn't want to be thrust into a 4-hour sales presentation on a Wednesday night in my own kitchen. So we avoid that at all costs.
Cool. Yeah. That gives me a good feeling after what we were just talking about just a little bit earlier, that we won't be sitting for 4 hours on a Wednesday evening.
No. You and your wife are lovely people, but I have a family too. Need to be in front of.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, cheers to that. Cheers to
Cheers.
family. How about that? Okay. Give maybe a little bit of a profile. Well, is your business structured that you've got salespeople, I would assume, you've got installers that are part of your contracting team, et cetera. Are they all employees of yours, or do you sub out any of that work?
So we do both.
Okay.
Which is the best formula that we have found over the years. And I know from time to time people sort of get a bad impression of a subcontractor.
Sure.
But the reality is, they run a business the same way you do or I do, and they want to be the best at what they do. And trying to find reputable, good installers for $18 to $25 an hour just doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got our internal team, and those guys can do windows, they can do doors, they can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a network of subcontracting partners, I would say, that help supplement when things start to get really busy.
Really busy. Yeah. Okay.
But that way we're not having to lay off people in the winter, and like those subcontractors that run an installation business. I mean, they have different things they do in the winter to keep things. They run their business seasonally the same way that we do.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just an employment arrangement, really,
right.
Or contractual arrangement. Like one of the concerns some people maybe have, which I think is mitigated by how you have those relationships structured, is the possible timeliness or responsiveness that you get from those subs compared to if they're your people. You can tell them, you have to be here on this day, or you have to be here on this day. So do you have you ever run into any of those issues, or?
No, because we use the same guys all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's how you mitigate that. Relationships, good contractors, and then you can kind of bypass some of those issues.
Yeah, we tell people all the time, it doesn't behoove us one bit to send some half-wit into your house. Like the lifeblood of our business is referrals and prior customers coming back. So for us to send somebody in that's going to negatively impact that model, it doesn't work. Like we don't exist when that happens.
You heard it here first. No half-wits.
No half-wits. Not a one.
That's good. So what did the business look like when you not even started, I'd say you bought it in 2011 compared to where it's at now?
So we're about 4 times the size that we were then. We were doing about 600,000 in revenue out of the Harrisburg store, 700,000 in revenue. So I guess we're about 3 times as big.
Okay.
We did 2.2 million last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then another 800 and change with Glass Doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And employees, what has that looked like over the years? Has it been a sort of a moderate growth of who you brought on, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think particularly on the HomeRite side, we run, I'd say, a really efficient team. And, for years it was just myself, Kyle, and another guy that we grew up with, Jared, that does all 95% of the sales now. And we would just do everything. And then it was like, okay, so we need to add somebody. So we brought in Brittany, who is sort of like the customer liaison.
Okay.
So when a job gets sold, then we hand it off to Brittany, and she does everything.
Okay.
Contacts the homeowner, schedules all the appointments, does everything. But that way, the homeowner has a direct contact. And they can get a hold of me, they can get a hold of Jared, they can get a hold of Kyle for that matter. I mean, our cell phone numbers are plastered everywhere. But that's been, I think, like I said, referrals, reviews are critically important to what we do. And Brittany does a really good job of making sure that the job goes off without a hitch, and that when it's done, so many people are really geared up and eager to level a bad review.
Yeah.
I think when we're done, people are super pumped and excited to send out a good review.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they've sort of stumbled, like everybody sees, the other big guys spend $1 zillion in advertising, but they feel like they've stumbled across this gem.
Yeah.
And now they kind of are part of the family and want to help us grow.
Yeah.
And that's been really cool and sort of unique to see over the last 15-ish years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we still see a lot of people, whether it's a home show or, we do a bunch of stuff with the senators. So we usually have a bunch of our prior customers come out to see us at senators games. And it's just people that we've done work for, 10, 15 years ago. And it's just, they've sort of constantly kept up and stayed in touch. And it's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. To sort of build that community.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about Glass Doctor, at least mentioned it at this point. How did that all come to be, and how does that work kind of in conjunction with HomeRite?
So Glass Doctor, we bought into the franchise in 2019, and it was really a mechanism to help make sure that that HomeRite. So what we wanted to avoid was when it was time for Kyle and I to kind of hang it up, was that the business wouldn't be worth anything because there was no formal structure or systems in place that, heaven forbid something would happen to one of us, that the business doesn't just go.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, good way to avoid that, and watching some family members sort of go through that same process. When Glass Doctor reached out, this was the second time, and we had already been doing a lot of glass service. But the idea sort of switched from, sort of just diversifying or bringing on the second company to, well, if we bring on this company, I think this can serve two purposes, and we can take some of the systems and processes that Glass Doctor has used over the last 65 years to develop these 400 stores, implement them into HomeRite, and now, God willing, they work. And if something now would happen to Kyle, either systems in place or processes in place for the business to continue without one of us being intricately involved on it, really in the deep minutia day to day.
Yeah, that's smart. One thing, it seems like
didn't seem like it at the time. It seemed like incredibly months. What are we doing?
It's a challenge, I think, that you're breaking through. That in particular, and this is not meant to be a slight, but I think it's a pretty common issue that just really skilled tradespeople don't necessarily have the business knowledge or acumen to take it beyond. So you have a lot of people that are out there that are unbelievably skilled, but they hit these pretty low ceilings because they don't know the skills or don't take the time to figure out how to translate that into some sort of efficient model to try to grow
that you can even scale to a very small degree.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the right question is around this, so I'm just gonna, maybe stumble around a little. But you've mentioned being I think it's pretty safe to say that some of the major competitors that are in the area are run by people who maybe they had some craftsmen in their background, but they're business people and marketing people, and they've just figured out how to build a business and doing it through this means. Right. But you're the opposite, where you're a craftsman, 100%. Right? And figuring out how to do this. So,
well, I was a salesman for a long time.
Okay.
And the old adage is, if you want to bury a company, put a salesman in charge. So we that was a cautionary tale early on. Yeah, but to your point, might be a elongated answer, but so a buddy of mine, when going to high school, went to Williams Valley. When we got out of high school and we went through college and sort of reconnected maybe 5 years out of college, and started to talk about, he was working for ADP at the time. We were trying to figure out a way to work together. And I almost took a job at ADP, and then the housing market kind of started to turn. So I decided to stay at MI. And we just, again, for the better part of probably 10 years, trying to figure out a way to just collaborate and do something together.
Yeah.
And we were going to get to that point with HomeRite where it was like, all right, we need to, the old, what got us here is not getting us there.
Yeah.
So John came, John and I started talking about, and he had worked for one of the other guys in town for 6 or 8 months and kind of saw how they did things and was looking for something different and wanted to sort of leave the corporate world and get involved with something a little bit smaller. So he and I started talking and thought, well, there's a number of different ways to do this. Like, this industry, particularly windows and doors, is still done basically the way it was in the 70s, where it's like somebody comes into the house and both decision makers need to be there, and we're going to be here for hours until you sign this contract, and I'm going to call my manager and do all this. Right. Yes. The assumptive close. And all these just really sort of like greasy, dirty things. And we're like, there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
And again, we were sort of trying to take that next step in the evolution of the business. And if we're going to do this, we're really going to do this, then let's shake it up a little bit and just make it different.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the impetus for revamping the website. And again, John came in, bunch of corporate experience and just functioning at a much higher level. Didn't know anything about a window, but understood marketing, understood advertising, understood scaling, and how to operate a business. So he came on board, and that's when we started to redesign the website. And I would say that's probably where the business really turned from, we're window and door guys, but we just kind of do what everybody else in the market does. There's nothing flashy. It was we have a huge differentiator. And when you're up against guys, every week they have the greatest deal they've ever had and they throw free around all the time. And I don't know how many times I could have asked my marketing people, like, what word can we use that's not free, but has the same sort of cachet and pull that free does? And they're like, there isn't one. I'm like, awesome. Like, all right, so how are we going to differentiate this thing? And again, that's where we came up with the model of actually putting the pricing right on the website. And we actually went sort of like the Apple model, where you have like this package, this package, this package.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of the just sort of guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
95% of the windows we sell are white double hungs that fall into a size range about this big.
Yeah.
So for us to be able to put pricing out there was easy, but it's not hard.
Right.
And it certainly isn't as impossible as these other companies make you think that it is. The idea that you could call it one of these companies that does $30 million a year revenue, right? And they can't tell you or won't tell you how much a window costs, right? So you call in there, you say, hey, my wife and I thinking about getting some new windows for the house. Can you at least give me just a ballpark of kind of where we're starting? No. Like, you need to literally sell 10,000 of these things this year.
Yeah. And
you can't tell me. So.
And I would just.
And that people just buy into that. Like, there has to, like a light has to go off at some point.
Well, as a consumer, and so I'll speak from that side on the consumer side. I'm conscientious that I don't want to waste anyone's time.
Right.
And if I know, so I had an experience, somebody came out, I try not to give too many details because I don't want to maybe, whatever. It was related to our pool.
Okay.
And we had one idea in mind of something that we wanted to try to do as a modification to our pool. And originally we're told, oh yeah, it should be no problem. Mm-hmm. And I just said, hey, give me a ballpark, because I did not want to waste this person's time. Yeah, it won't be a problem. Oh man, top end, like this is what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, okay, great. I'll have you come manageable. Back. Comes back. Well, it turns out that was inaccurate, and I couldn't actually do what was told. And then the conversation turned to, well, since we can't do that, we could, but it's going to take all this, and it's going to be like 3 to 4 times what we told you. And then it turned to, and if you're going to do that, you might as well just get a whole new pool. So here's what we can do with the pool. Like, I didn't want to do that to begin with. But
how did we get?
Yeah, but it is kind of a catch-20, like especially in a situation with that. So I try to give a little grace, because you should have known what you were talking about. But it was sort of an odd request. But there is a little maybe potentially. I'll get to this in a second. There's maybe some potential hesitancy I can see on your side, where you don't want to quote somebody and then be way off,
right,
and have that kind of an issue. Now,
because everybody says, I'm not going to hold you to it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So how do you mitigate that? Like, I know, and so on your website, you've got this package for this window, this package for this window, this package for this window, and the price is right there.
Right there.
How do you mitigate running into, oh gosh, there's an issue with, like, I'm assuming there are things related to the installation that if they're out of the ordinary, I don't know if you'd consider that force majeure or whatever that would be, but they're out of the ordinary, that you have some wiggle room. But how do you mitigate that?
So I'd probably lump that in the same sort of realm as the warranty, right? So we offer a lifetime warranty.
Yep.
Transferable one time after you leave there. People say, "Oh my God, it's lifetime warranty." It's like, puts companies out of business. Like, how in the world can you do that? I'm like, well, first of all, part of the price of the window helps to fund the warranty.
Sure.
Second of all, we probably do 15 warranty calls a year. Like, they're just really uncommon.
Yeah.
And our manufacturing partner, when we early on, the deal was, we'll give you the parts, you supply the labor, homeowner doesn't get affected at all. But it's so rare that we have a warranty issue, period. And then beyond that it's something sort of catastrophic where it's like, we've never had one where we actually had to like remove a window.
Sure.
It's usually the weed whacker throws a rock through the window or the kid throws a baseball through the window.
Sure.
But the actual pricing, the upfront pricing, is sort of in that same realm, right? We know about how often something, 15 years, we know about how often something goes sideways.
Okay.
We know about how often we're going to get into different types of windows. And as older houses sort of age out and have already had the work done, you get newer houses that are going to build differently. So a lot of that stuff we keep a keen eye on, and we watch it internally really closely. So while the pricing is online, it also allows us to be flexible and we can change it as we need to. So I'd say that's probably been the easiest way to mitigate, something really coming out of the woods. And to your point about force majeure, I mean, yeah, if something, we get into a house that's just the walls rotten, and, the average homeowner is going to understand that, yes, I know this is something, out of the ordinary and not typical. So again, because so many of our customers are repeat customer referrals, like, we tend to run into the same kind of people over and over and over again. And they tend to be a very understanding, smart, they just savvy people. They understand. Doesn't always go perfect.
Yeah. Got it. So probably the answer then to the sort of kind of tying back to an original statement / maybe question that came out of it of, well, why wouldn't these much larger companies do that, is, well, it's not their system. Their system is built around getting somebody in the door, hard close, hard sale, whatever.
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because they could, I'm sure.
Oh, right.
They do enough that they would have a lot of, if you think of like the actuarial pool of if they're doing way more, then they've got a lot more data behind how, what things would cost.
Yeah.
But it's just, they don't want to because it's not their system.
No. And I think it sort of falls into the fun little game of stupid or liar, right? You either know and you're not telling me, you're lying to me, or you really do install this many of these things and you don't know how much it costs. One of those two things.
That's 3 gems thus far. I'm counting 3 gems for sure. So would you say that's part of your differentiation is transparency in pricing?
We're the
technique?
only ones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's even another company out there that doesn't necessarily require somebody comes to your home, but you still have to turn over your email address, your address, your phone number, all your sort of pertinent details, where we don't ask you for any of that stuff. And I'm sure that we get people that come in and they get sort of surprised. I mean, a lot of people have no earthly idea what it's going to cost.
Sure.
And then maybe they call somebody else and they get hard closed by, somebody even after they've been to the website and maybe even pay more. That's probably not our customer anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
The feedback that we get from the people that have done it, and particularly the people that have been through the process with somebody else and have had one of those bad experiences. I can't believe more people don't do this.
Sure.
The idea that you can find comps for houses, comps for cars, see what the invoice price of a car is, see what the house sold for, but not a window.
Interesting.
It's bizarre.
I mean, it really feels like it is a consumer or customer experience first mindset rather than a business system and how do we grow the business first, which, you can do those. So I'm known to to talk about either books I'm reading now or whatnot, and Ricky's going to roll her eyes because I've been talking about that. I'm reading a book right now, listening to it, called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yep, I know exactly the one.
And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, well, that's unreasonable hospitality in that, well, A, you're the only ones that are doing it. B, there's a reason nobody else is doing it. I don't know why, which makes it unreasonable, right?
The kids that never saw snow?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it really is all about, well, how do we drive a more positive and positively impactful experience for the end user, in this case, the person who is potentially spending a lot of money. And the reality is, it is going to cost, I mean, small house or large house.
Right. It's
a big investment. Money. It's a big investment. And I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer that if you have any data whatsoever, give me a range. Like, you got to put a range on it. Even if you're like way off, $500 to $4,500. I mean, that'd be an insane range. But give me something. Right. So I've got nothing. I'm going in blind. And you could hit me with a $50,000 estimate or a $300,000 estimate. And one of them I'm going to be happy. The other one, you're going to walk out with a bloody nose. And I'd just like to know if there's a general range.
Which one of those I need to prep for?
Exactly, yeah. But it just intuitively, it just makes sense.
Right. And but
why doesn't it happen? That's an offline, maybe more of an offline question, but
honestly, I think it's because nobody else has had the guts to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's, the one call closers, they know if they don't get the deal done that night, that they're probably not going to.
Yeah.
Because somebody's never going to come through the door that's going to have a comparable product for a lot less because they don't have the marketing machine in the background that they need to feed.
Right.
So if they can't get in the house, the system doesn't work, which is why so many of them just, it's like I just did a radio spot yesterday and the topic was sort of the buy one, get one myth.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Buy one, get one free, buy two, get two free. The only problem is nobody ever asks, well, what does just one cost?
Yeah.
And then, because when I go to the grocery store, I can see that a dozen eggs cost me $4.89.
Yeah.
And if they're going to give me two, now I'm going to get two for $4.89.
Right.
I don't have to wait till I get to the register and then they tell me how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Again, people just, I don't know why these questions don't come up. And I guess it's just because it's been done like this for so long. And there's just, again, outside of us, there's nobody else doing it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That leads to another question. This is not one to answer yet.
Right.
But we can maybe talk about and keep talking. How do we make Andy and HomeRite more successful?
This is a good start.
Yeah, it is. But to me, all that stuff is what people want.
Right.
And how do we make sure that more people are getting that through Andy and HomeRite? Not just getting it, but I mean, we want them to get it either way. Right. But we'd love them to get through you.
We would. But again, that's where, we're okay growing at a sort of slower rate, but being able to do and operate the business the way that we want to.
Yeah.
Not well, it'd be great if lots more people knew who we were.
Yeah.
It's going to cost a lot of money. And now, we get back into, we talked about before, waking up on the first of the month and just staring at this giant hole to climb out of.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not what I want to worry about. I don't want to worry about throughout the month, how are we going to pay all these advertisers back?
Yeah.
I want to worry about how do we make this experience the best for that homeowner? Because at the end of the day, if I didn't have to spend a nickel on advertising, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think the business would be better off for it. We just don't have that big of a network at this point. So we do have to sort of cultivate business that way. But we'd love for lots more people to know. But it gets counterproductive at some point.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Table that, because that's going to be part of a latter, one of the last questions I ask.
Table.
But I want to pivot to two topics. One about your people, because you talk a lot about the culture and the people that you have. So let's start there. But then I want to talk just a little bit about the two models that you're working under. So you've got an independently run business
Right.
and then a franchise, and just kind of a little bit about that. But let's start with your people. So I don't know. I think in your intake question, we asked one of the questions we asked is, what's the thing that makes you the most successful, or the one thing that you attribute to your success? And your answer was the people around me.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that. Why, like, how does that impact you? How have you created a system where the people are so important, and how do you make sure that people stay with you for a long time so that that culture maintains?
So one of the things that I think we just sort of inherently did early on was we add people via networking versus job boards and classifieds and things like that.
Yep.
And I think that's really helped the keeping people because they're sort of one way or another probably tied to one of us. So there's a certain level of loyalty there.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I think Kyle and I have always, there's nothing that we wouldn't do. And I think the people that we've brought on board see that and like, well, they're never going to ask me to do something that they can't or wouldn't do, which I think goes a really, really long way in building a team. And then we all have very specific roles. Like, remember early on, we used to say, well, it's kind of everybody's job. And then, sort of back to John came on board and we got to that point where we started to kind of grow the business, do things. And we got to the point where, like, well, if it's everyone's job, it's kind of no one's job.
Yeah.
Right. So we really clearly defined each role, and then we tied this role to this role and this role to this role. Right. Because I never wanted to be somebody that did like performance reviews where you felt like your job was on the line.
Sure.
Like, it's not the way that I like to manage. It's not the way I like to build a team. Like, if we bring you on, we just assume that you're going to perform and you're going to do what you need to do and keep things moving. So tying, each job together, each sort of phase of the business together, and having everybody pull in the same direction has been an easier way to measure performance, because now it's not measuring you, and you. It's here's the end result. How'd we do? And if that's where it's supposed to be, then I know that we did everything we needed to do, because if the results weren't here, then we had a failure in here somewhere. But the way that it's structured and as lean as the team is, we can figure it out pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
So I think just having people that are insanely loyal, and I would say to a fault, but really would do anything we ask them to do. Because I think they know deep down that if they asked Kyle and I to do anything, the answer is always yes. And we also lead by, your family is paramount to anything we do here. Like, I put my family first, Kyle puts his family first. We certainly expect you to put your family first too. So if your son or daughter has a baseball game and it's at 2:00 in the afternoon, like, by all means, get your stuff done, go. If there's a doctor's appointment, we expect you to be there. So again, I think just having that level of respect that, HomeRite, while it's what provides for all of us, if we're not in a good space, like, the business is never going to be a good place. So again, the loyalty part, treating people with a tremendous amount of respect, making sure that everybody's sort of aligned in the same structure to get where we need to go. And that at the end of the day, they know that no matter what they need, we, within reason, if we can, we'll deliver it to them.
That's awesome.
Well, we try.
One of our core values is humility, but the tagline behind it is, we're not too good for anything. And when I revealed it, it came from part of the phrase came from one of our other employees, Andy, and he used the phrase, you'll never hear somebody say, I'm not willing to do that.
Right.
Doesn't mean, to your point about, like, I can't be, doing the dishes or opening the mail all the time, whatever. We have jobs and different roles because time is better served different places. but if push came to shove and I needed to do those things, I'm going to do those things.
Right.
And even hearing you talk about the loyalty piece of the team,
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference between knowing that loyalty's there and appreciating it,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that loyalty's there and taking advantage of it.
Right.
And that's cool to hear.
Mm-hmm.
The latter is not happening there.
No.
You might go through seasons where it's like, look, we got to buckle down, and I know you're in this,
Mm-hmm.
and like, let's do it, and maybe let's figure out a way to make sure that you don't feel like you're being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't going to be a recurring theme in your life, and whatever.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that's probably another differentiator if I would
100%. Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's why, I said we were setting up for the York Home Show this morning, and it's one venue that, again, we've always done really well. We don't generate the kind of buzz or the number of leads that a lot of the other companies do. But again, like, even when somebody comes up to us at a home show, it's just a different experience, right? You're not talking to somebody that's holding a clipboard and all they want to do is just name it. I really wish you'd stop asking me questions. All I need is your name, your address, your phone number, and your email. That's it. I don't know anything about Windows. And
yeah.
Well, what is this? What's this thing here cost? What's your name again?
Yeah.
But we actually have, our people. Jared, who is our salesman, is generally the guy that's at those shows, and then Brittany's at those shows. So they're talking to somebody that could literally give them a price while they're there, can answer any question they could possibly have about a window or a door. Oh, and by the way, if you wanted to give us your name and your phone number and have us come out and do an estimate, that'd be great too.
Yeah.
But it's just a different experience, and people are like, oh, thank goodness.
It's just so great.
Yeah, but we would do this like, you start to get kind of chubby with people. Like, do me a favor, just ask, walk around and ask if anybody else gives you a price on a window, and if they do, I'll buy you lunch. And they always come back. They're like, "You're right, nobody did it." Like, I'll buy you lunch anyway.
Yeah,
but it's just, again, it's like there's this HomeRite that just functions so much differently than all these other window and door companies in town, and there's a ton of them here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But somebody told me when we started really getting into like the online pricing thing, and I even had hesitations too. But he said, disrupt. Every time there's a change, there's a disruptor that starts that change.
Yeah.
And he said, this industry can't function like this forever. It's amazing that it still does now, but it certainly is only going to take a couple of people to start shaking this thing up and getting to a point where the 4-hour sales presentation is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And now everybody has some sort of quoting tool online.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Quickly, talk about maybe just what are some of the differences in how you've had to manage dealing with running your independent business on the HomeRite side versus being part of a franchise with the Glass Doctor?
So I would say that the A number one thing we talked about, like, taking a brand from zero to where HomeRite is now. And HomeRite isn't even nearly as recognizable as Glass Doctor, which has been around for a much shorter period of time. So Glass Doctor inherently is not real. I mean, and they say too, like, when you get into these things, they generally say, like, we're here as much as you need us to be here.
Sure.
And if you don't call us, we're probably not calling you. So if we stay in the system, right, and we don't do anything to raise up red flags, maybe they generally kind of leave us alone. So the two of them don't feel like they're that horribly far apart in managing them. I would say Glass Doctor is probably just a little bit easier, just again because of the systems and processes in place.
Yep.
It's a system that's built for an owner operator to sort of grow the business and then sort of work their way out. Which again is part of the reason that we started to do it anyway.
Yep.
But I mean, it's not insanely different, and kind of back to the people. When it comes down to a big part of our philosophy is how we deal with our people. People Glass Doctor, people at HomeRite, still the same.
Yeah. So do you have different staff for the Glass Doctor? Yeah. Okay. All right. Totally different team?
Totally different team.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said to you before, I don't know that trying to we run them out of the same building.
Sure.
And it's not like, well, on this side of the hall we have Glass Doctor, and this side of the hall we have HomeRite. It's like, well, here's somebody from HomeRite, here's somebody from Glass Doctor.
Yeah.
So that sometimes gets a little bit challenging, but it's maybe from a human resource perspective, like HomeRite, we've always been able to just kind of do like our own thing when it comes to like vacation time, PTO, stuff like that. Where Glass Doctor is a little bit more regimented. The way that you have to sort of do vacation and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's just more structure, but like I said, it's not monumentally different.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to do that, so it's sort of you know what I'm good at.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I always like to end around a similar theme, which is looking down the road. 5 years, 10 years from now, if you were to get to that point and look back, what's in store for the two businesses, HomeRite and Glass Doctor? Mm-hmm. What would you want to have happen over the next 5 to 10 years to be able to look back and say, this was a success, we did what we hoped we'd do, and this was all worthy?
I would like, so currently with Glass Doctor, right now we have Hershey Territory, Harrisburg, the West Shore, and then we jump out to State College in Altoona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'd like to see over the next 5 years really sort of focus a little bit more on the Hershey. So right now, Glass Doctor's really doing well in sort of the West Shore into Harrisburg. I'd like to see Glass Doctor expand and sort of grow the markets in Hershey and State College and Altoona, and then see HomeRite sort of go in tow. And, you know, like we're already running trucks there, we're already running people there. Mine's also windows and doors while we're there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd like to see some growth there geographically. And then again, it's one of those sort of smart things, and you learn as you go. But I was one of those people that got way too enamored with revenue and not nearly as enamored with how much we're actually making from said revenue. So that has also been a push. And, you know, we kind of tie that back to our people too. Like I want to be able to, like I see other companies, you know, take their people to Cancun for a week or, you know, for vacations, and just really be able to do cool things for their people that they're probably not going to be able to do on their own.
Sure.
So I'd like to see the company get to a point financially that we can do more of those things for the people that have sort of got us to where we are. Yeah. So some growth would be great. Integrate some more systems and processes, be able to do some more stuff for our people because we did get more efficient, we got leaner. And then start 10 to 15-ish years is going to be about the end of me.
Okay.
So what that sort of...
not literally. Right. Yeah. Hopefully you're still around.
Right. Hopefully I'm vertical at that point. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you know, if one of my kids is going to maybe think about getting into it, or so there's going to be that sort of succession thing that starts to happen around that time too. Sure. So that'll be kind of neat and interesting.
Yeah. All right. Lots of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I always love doing is planting the seed of saying, as we keep engaged, looking out into the future, bringing people back on to hear about where things were when we maybe first interviewed and where things are at now. So I will look forward to that. It will be. Yeah. All right. So everybody that's listening, watching, whatever at home, if they want to learn more about either business, what is the best way to find out more about the organizations?
Well, you can find us online at HomeRiteHarrisburg.com, HomeRite Harrisburg.com, or Glass Doctor. It's just glassdoctor.com. We have a showroom on Trindle Road.
Okay.
That is open Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4. Call us. Just ask. Like, we're literally an open book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are.
We are.
Awesome.
And I would say, again, back to like our people. Like, it's just the same sort of dopey people like me that just sort of came together to do this. So it's neat.
Yeah. Now, there will be that is different, not in a negative sense, but you get an authenticity, a genuineness of people in that sense, which is really cool. So
I've been told I'm authentic.
You are.
Yeah. Thank you. Been called way worse too.
That's right. Yeah. I'll save that for later.
Probably.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. This
You're
has
very
been
welcome.
awesome. Everybody at home, hope you've learned a lot. I can tell you, look, this is just. I know I have some other people that are, in your industry, maybe, but I can tell you that they will be coming into my home at some point and having a sit down, not on a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m.
No,
but
I'm sure I have a basketball game or a soccer game to get to at that time.
So we will practice the preaching, if you will. But I can vouch for Andy, and they've done some work for us on the Glass Doctor side. Great team, fantastic operation. We're thrilled to be able to allow you all to hear a little bit of this side of the story. But if you're interested, if you're looking into windows, doors, glass-related issues, check out their websites, learn more about them. We'd love to have support this awesome business right here in our backyard in Central PA. So
we appreciate
thank you very much. Appreciate it, brother.
Amen.
Everyone at home, hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next episode of the Born Podcast.
Thank you.